long way from that, man. But I think it's very interesting.
As a Sunday League defender, talk to me.
Bro, you square. Is his body position is terrible. As you said, he's left himself open to be nutmeg there. You've got to be side on, really and truly. Ideally, you've got to show Trent Alexander down the line where he kind of went. You can't let him beat you there in that situation. And that's the issue with Zinchenko. Like you can see his body positioning. Not that I can tell a Premier League footballer anything, but it's terrible there.
This is the thing. And it's the thing is, and the point I'm making in the video as well, is like, we can sit here as people with Sunday League appearances. It's the same technique. The point is, it's just at a very, very high level and consistency. High level. It's consistency of being able to arrive in that position, in the right position, the right body
using this, man,
over and over and over again at the top level. That's the hard thing. It's not Zinchenko didn't know how to do it. It's just that I think he was a bit inconsistent with it. He had a situation with Iheanacho at the end of last. Anyway, loads of situations.
Remember Chelsea at home as well last year. It's slightly, if I'm honest, Fulham at home this year as well. So I think you're bang on the money. And with Zinchenko, it's just about thinking, isn't it? Like, obviously, as I said, he's not going to be a great 1v1 defender. He is improving. He can do a lot better. And I think the conversations around Zinchenko of Mikel Arteta, obviously we know he's playing left back. We know he inverts, but he kind of not downplays him defensively, but he just makes a point of he is an attacker. He is playing in midfield. We've got other situations. As we know, Declan Rice will kind of cover him. Gabriel Jesus will pull out. And it's just, to a degree, it's for the players to know their teammates and for fans to accept players for what they are. But I do think, in his own way, Zinchenko has reacted. Same way Tomiyasu's reacted. The same way, in a good way, Timber was good and bad news for this squad if you want first team football. Unfortunately, he's injured. So, and obviously Benjamin White's hardly put a foot wrong. What maybe Benjamin White's flattest game probably in the League Cup against Brentford, where he weren't bad. So this is the sort of stuff we need to do, man. Is there anyone you fear in Europe? Because we kind of just spoke about this, and I personally feel at the Emirates we can give everybody a game. Away from home we've improved. Obviously it's a different dynamic stepping away. We all know you've got Madrids and all these things, but is there necessarily anyone you fear? Because obviously us Arsenal fans, we're going to be in cloud nine. We think we could take on the world, probably even win Tour de France right now and whatnot. So yeah, man, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. I really don't know, because the problem is, until you're up against that level.
Yep.
That's why we wanted to be in the Champions League, to go and see ourselves against that level and just get a sense of where we are. It's like, you can speak all you want conceptually about, in any sport, what if Alcaraz comes up against Nadal, or what if you can do whatever you like, but until it actually happens, you can't tell the level. I think conceptually then, I would say, as you mentioned, that the improvements away from home filled me with a lot of joy, considering the Premier League is the best league in the world. I think no one would dispute that, and we're defensively
away games a cup final, really, man.
100%, and defensively we're really, really solid there. I wouldn't be, if we had to go to the Bernabeu and sit in for 90 minutes, I'd be comfortable with us doing that. I actually don't think we'd need to.
My heart would probably stop, man.
I think we'd be fine, because the thing is we still think about Real Madrid and that name, right? Actually, I'm not suggesting they don't have brilliant players. They do. They have fantastic players, but they're not in their Galacticos era. They're not in their Ronaldo, Bale, Benzema era.
I mean, they're human just like us.
They're humans. They're in a different era. They're not even top of their league. So I think there is a space for us to go, do you know what? We can turn up, we can arrive. And I think the only thing that would pull us back is that, we're plucky Arsenal and we've just got back in the Champions League. Sorry, and being a bit apologetic. I don't think Arteta would allow a second. He'd have none of that. So I'm really excited. I would love a round of 16. What I'd love is a round of 16 at a tricky away place like Napoli or something like that.
Nah, I want the shittest team left, man. I can't agree with that. I want the shittest team available. Let's just cut through this, man.
I'd love a little look at Osimhen against us. But I think, just to get some shots of Arteta going. But
he's saying video footage.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to see us in a sort of really hostile away environment that isn't like Lens, and see how we react to that, and then hopefully get some, quarterfinals, whoever it is. I know we kind of want a maybe an easier route to the final. Actually, to be honest, I'd quite like to play those teams and see where we're at.
I hear you, but if we can get the easiest route to the final, play the crappiest team in the final, bring that Champions League, what we deserve, I'm with that, man. I hear you. It's very poetic, and I agree, but me, nah. And I agree with you in that I feel we've improved away from home, even where if I was to look through this season in all comps, I think my more disappointments have been away from home, with the exception of probably Spurs and Fulham. I think I was really disappointed in the 45 minutes at Chelsea. Obviously, we went out the cup against West Ham. We lost the lens in the return fixture, but I do think we can handle those moments. I just feel with Arsenal, beyond the obvious, not that we have this element of self-capitulation, but we make things harder for ourselves. Like last season, as great as City were, we kind of crumbled at the final hurdle. We made the Chelsea game, I just said, harder than it needed to be. The same goes for Spurs. And actually in games we've won really against Brentford, I know it was a low block, but I just felt we could have offered a lot more in that regards. But I wouldn't say I'm necessarily scared of anyone. I'm respectfully scared. We're not the biggest and baddest in Europe, but I just feel because of Mikel Arteta and what we're doing, we can compete. Whether that correlates to obviously going through in competitions and whatnot is another thing. We can't speak about yesterday and not speak about Kai Havertz, man. 2 goals in 2. And I actually feel, against Brentford, he came off the bench and made an impact. Yesterday, I think, yeah, he scored, but he was all involved. And being at the game, that was the first time I've looked at Kai Havertz. And it's like, me and you spoke about it. It's like, I want you to try things and not be fearful of mistakes. I'm seeing skills. I'm seeing the tackles. Obviously, he scored. He looked more confident. His first game at the Emirates. Yeah, man. What did you feel of his performance? And do you think it's now time to kick on, or is it small sample size? Let's just keep going and see what happens, man.
It's both. I think, yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in the idea of like what's in the micros in the macro and what's in the macros in the micro. And I think if you just look at him in the warm ups, he just looks a bit more confident. That was it. I was just watching him. They had a camera on him, TNT Sports last night. I was just watching him, and he was just a bit more of a swagger. You can see his chest going. You can see he's a bit more pulled out. You can see he's demanding things. You can see he's saying, "Look, give that ball to me," or whatever. It's a little moment, and someone might say, well, it's completely irrelevant. It only matters what happens on the pitch, but you're not the same person that you were in the warm-up, so it does matter. I do think, yeah, I can see a level of confidence coming to his game. I'm still kind of jury's out a little bit.
100%.
I still think we're so keen for him to be a success that sometimes he has a bit of success and we go, oh, is it?
We're clutching at straws, man. We've come a long way from praising him for clattering someone against Newcastle. And to be fair with you, around the kind of Newcastle game period, I don't think it was anything like the last 2 games or anything, but he was probably one of our better players. It's now just about standing out for Havertz. And yesterday, again, small sample size, but that's whether I like you or not, think you're a good player or not, think you'll be a success or not, that's the sort of things I want to see in the last 2 games from Kai Havertz. Because as me and you have spoken before, at the point of signing for this club, I looked at him in the same way I looked at Odegaard, Jesus, Zinchenko, and people of that ilk. Like, you've got a wealth of experience. Some of you have been in the game since a young age, and obviously we've got that at Arsenal. That's what I want to see, especially where there's a lot of, let's be honest, there's a lot of questions in midfield, with the exception of Declan Rice and Odegaard on his day. So I want to see Kai Havertz stand up to be kind. So I think it's a step in the right direction, man. I think you're bang on the money. Do you think this form will persist, or is it a thing where you're only going as far as you can see with Kai? You did say it's like Berbatov.
I did, and do you know what? Michael Owen said that on TNT, and I thought, oh, have I got that wrong then? I was like, if Michael Owen and
he's a Ballon d'Or winner, man, you're on the right path.
Michael Owen and I agree on something, then I'm concerned. I don't know. I suspect this season Kai Havertz will be a streaky player who won't ever quite find his feet, and this season. I think it's just going to take some time. This is the thing is I think we've spoken about this before. People will allow Pep a year with a player before they start judging him. They'll go like, yeah, it was absolutely fine. Then in the same breath, they'll say Mikel Arteta should be beating Pep. And in the same breath, say players should come in and make an immediate impact. So, so Pep's allowed a year. And Mikel's got to get the same results, but he's also got to get players in straight away and have an impact. And
he's nowhere near Pep Guardiola, respectfully, in the managerial realm. It's not fair at all, is it? It's just like what you say in the double standards, where we say, where we sit here and say we've got to be ruthless. I think you're bang on the money.
So I just think it will take some more time for Havertz to really develop under Mikel. I think he's needed some moments. I think that moment against Brentford will be, you know, on the wall where he has those like golden moments or whatever. He'll 100% have one of those. I absolutely guarantee it, because Mikel will, even if it's like really that should be reserved for like Reece Nelson and like a few other people, but he'll be allowed one of those, because I think Mikel really, really loves him and really wants it to work, and you know it's understandable. And maybe some other players in the squad might feel that's a little bit maybe the treatment they'd like, but that's the way the game goes. I think I'm looking forward to see what happens to Havertz. I'm not going to count my chickens too early. I think he's looked better, but again, there's a lot. I'm still looking for more influence on the game. I'm still looking for more carries. I'm still looking for a more decisive player in the final third. Lots and lots of things, but it's a really good first step, and I don't want to take that away from him.
And I think you're bang on the money, man. The jury's still out. As I've previously said, I hope that Kai Havertz's initial period signing for this club is like a rainy season in what's going to be a long, sunny sort of season for Arsenal Football Club.
He's 24.
Exactly, he's 24. That's why he's at that weird age, bro, where it's like you still got a bit of time, but we need to start seeing things. And I think we've come a long way from being a charity case, really. You know, I like the camaraderie, but gifting you penalties, you look a shadow of your former self. You know, Arsenal fans, including myself, were clutching at straws and doing hell of analysis around Kai Havertz. You know, whether you think he's a good player or not, I don't advocate scapegoating. There was a bit of scapegoatism with Kai Havertz's performance or when it's negatively gone against us. So long may it continue, man. From one midfielder to another, you know, in fact, two players and one's in centre half. I know it in relation to Saliba, there isn't too much to waffle about from yesterday, but talk to me about Saliba and Rice. It's shocking how they're just lit all the time, like different class above everybody, really and truly, like especially Declan Rice. It feels like you've always been hearing we need to give West Ham some more money, man. How has he made £105 million look like a tenner? Like, it's ridiculous. We robbed him.
He's a joke. He's a joke. And just on Rice quickly, like the concerns that were had about his passing are now looking pretty funny because you know, the slip balls, the breaking the lines. There was a moment where the carries, like he can do absolutely everything. He can play 6 and 8. He's always available. Yeah, I mean, what can you say about it?
What can you say? That's why I'm asking you. Maybe you can say something different to me.
There's nothing. There's not going to be any new analysis on him because he's just. There's no where analysis comes from is when something is maybe not working or you're trying to explain why it's working. Exactly. It is working, and it's very clear why it's working. He's bloody brilliant, and
sometimes football is simple. Yeah,
and this is the thing is I think, you know, I know sometimes, you know, I try and be as forward thinking and sort of clear in my analysis and try and really get to the bottom of it from where I'm sat. But with Declan Rice, it is as simple. And I think football, as you say, it's sometimes as simple as he is a brilliant player who is just a cut above anyone else. And it's the same with Saka and it's the same with Saliba. At some point, you have to say that is a player who is been gifted with a skill set that can get him out of any situation. You could spend hours and hours and hours teaching a young centre back, right? Here's your body position when the ball's coming over you. So when this happens, you need to spring off your left foot, do that. When he's here, you need to pull up alongside him. Don't get too close. Maybe use your arms. You could spend hours and hours on training ground doing it. In the end, Saliba just knows how to do it. It does it, and you can just go, do you know what? You do it, and we'll worry about everything else. And
this is it.
Yeah, we have a player there.
I think you're bang on the money, man. I think what can you say about Saliba and Declan Rice, the quality players? I'd say the only thing with Declan Rice is I think we've not even scratched the surface. I think, actually, to go back to your point about having a year, you know, you look at Declan Rice, the man's a seasoned veteran, been playing as a 6, you know, West Ham hero and things. You know, Arteta is not Pep, but from the way the players speak, you know, obviously an element of it is probably PR. It's almost like going to school, going to university, going to college, your parents teaching you, everything you've ever been told about life and using midfield as a life analogy is a lie. You know, the way he speaks about Mikel Arteta and how he thought he knew football until he met him. Obviously, if you're relearning and everything's flipped on its head, he's learning fast, but you haven't really got there. And I think when we have confirmation over midfield and we've got decent options there and he's had a year under Arteta, we might be waffling about Declan Rice in the final third to the scale that, you know, we do about his other games. Like, I don't know if he'll ever be Frank Lampard, but he said it before, and I think he's got the capacity to aim for 10 or so goals a season. And I mean, Declan Rice is a class above everyone. I think the only person happier than Arsenal fans or Mikel Arteta has to be Gareth Southgate. Obviously, with Declan Rice, he's almost the piano pusher to the piano player, where there's Jude Bellingham and you're surrounded by that quality. But that's only going to benefit England, in a bit like Grealish improved defensively for City. So that redundant point that Southgate made for not introducing Grealish was there. And Saliba's a quality player, man. It's just about longevity. We've spoken about this before. I'm not one to get drawn into these world-class debates and things. I do believe you could argue Saka is a very, very top player. And if you think he's world-class in relation to what's around today, I don't think you have a leg to stand on to disagree with that. I just think it's for him. It's a body of work. I think Saliba's got the scope to do that. But I do think, in another way of looking at it, if anyone in this team is close to being a world-class player, it's got to be Declan Rice, really. Like, he does everything that a 6 demands of him. He's one of the best midfielders in the world at this moment, which the other two are. Like, it's lit, man. Like, I'm getting a bit selfish now to the point, bro, where surely let's just sign other players like him. Let's just keep spending this 100-odd million pound really on these guys.
Well, this is firstly on the world class thing. I think it depends on your definition of world class, and for me, it's if you're top. Well, if you're top 3 in the world in your position and you've done it for 2 seasons or more, that's I think we spoke about that last time. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with it.
Can't argue with Saka then. Yeah, let's do the propaganda, mate.
Yeah, and I think Saka is at for a right winger at world class. I think Saliba maybe just needs a bit more sample to be considered that, and Rice.
They're all top 5 in their roles,
maybe, but I still think you can call him world class. You just look at the way he plays. I will say, and this is when we come on to other, we talk about transfer targets and whether it's Douglas Luiz or Ruben, whoever it is. This is why I'm kind of more reticent to go too hard on those guys, because we've seen the impact of the ceiling raiser in Declan Rice. We've seen that happen. So why can't we go and do that and spend that kind of money? This is why I'm against like Ivan Toney. It's all these things. It's like, these guys are great and they come in and be a fantastic part of our squad. But look what Declan Rice has done. If you've got 150 million and this project's here to stay, go slap most of that down on a proper ceiling raiser rather than a couple of players who kind of do a job for you and are good players but aren't necessarily the Rice of their generation. Just go and get those guys.
I think you're bang on the money. Kind of moving away from the Champions League. Have you seen Jamie Carragher's comments about why we can't win the Premier League by any chance?
I don't think I have. I've seen the video, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah. Well, if you watched the video, you've seen it. What did you make of that?
What was his reasoning?
How, we're a bit blunt in attack, and he had a lot of statistics about like our goals and all it. Basically the same things me and you sit here and some of the fans listening big up you lot about how in the Prem, we're struggling to break down low blocks. We're not really creating or converting. He thinks that's where it will come down to. Kind of commented about how we're, kind of over focusing potentially on defense. It's to the point where I thought he was bugging out because Gary Neville made more sense than him, and I never really want to agree with him. I don't think Jamie Carragher, for what it's worth, is 100% wrong. Like I do think when people like him speak, we don't necessarily look at the message, we look at the messenger. But I don't think we're going to win the league. I really don't. I want to be wrong. I think we're moving in the right direction, but that higher elements and stuff is not quite there. But yeah, what did you make of it? Do you think do you think he's being a bit harsh? Do you think he's probably doing too much? Do you actually agree with the notion that some Arsenal fans say in that we're kind of saving ourselves for the season per se to kind of get better as the year goes on? What's your thinking?
I don't think so. I think again we only think about the last couple of games and we don't really take a step out and try and go, right, what's happening here. It's clear that I think at the end of last season we looked at that team and went, right, how do we evolve? We're conceding too many goals, so we have to do something about that. It's
they say defense wins titles. Like, we're one of the best teams in Europe defensively, really and truly.
And so you signed Declan Rice, and so you changed Zinchenko's role a little bit. I think Ben White's been a tad more conservative, although his OLAT numbers are still good. As you mentioned earlier, I think Saliba and Gabriel have improved, and obviously we brought in David Raya. So we've it's not just Declan Rice. We've changed a lot of things about our sort of back five.
And players improve year in, year out as well, which isn't seen as a sexy part of football.
No,
so
and the money. And Gabriel specifically, I think, has improved a lot this season. But I don't know. I understand that point of view. I think it has to be contextualized with the idea that what teams are doing against us now. But equally, again, it's all opinions, but I think it's managing that balance and how do we understand that? Last season, people are saying, Jamie, you're such an idiot. This season, players are ganging up on Saka and Martinelli like no others. It's like, well, they were last season as well.
Yeah, they were. And every player gets that. They tried that with Mo Salah. You have to find solutions. It comes with the territory.
Yeah. And they do it every single season. So you can't expect to be at the top and then teams just be like, yeah, just take us. Like they're gonna defend.
Look at the game last night. You give our players space. It's not gonna end well, is it?
Exactly. So, which is why I was also slightly frustrated that Arteta didn't stress in his press conference. I mean, he may also think this. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he didn't stress. He was sort of just saying, look at the way teams are set up against us. We can't do anything. And I was kind of going, I hope that, look, we contextualize that. We say, look, this is the way teams are setting up against us. That's make it really hard. However, we can try and do something different about it. You know, we've sat here before, and I've talked about it on my channel and loads of stuff, like, you know, how whether it's positioning the eights a little bit further out to pull them out, or maybe sitting back a little bit further to try and get balls in behind, or going long, or trying more crosses, or whatever, you know, whatever, however you want to do it. There's a million different ways you can break a block down, carries, whatever. And I don't think we've really explored all of those so far this season, but that might be because we're focusing on the defensive side of the game. I don't think Mikel is sat there going, right, I'm going to really defend really hard at the beginning of the season. And he just wants to win the next game. He just wants to win the next game. You can't predict,
as it should be.
You can't predict who's going to be fit and available. You can't predict how the league's going to look. You can't predict what position you're in. You're just trying to win the next game. And I think at the minute, you know, I think that is the first time Rice, Havertz, Odegaard, Saka, Jesus, and Martinelli have started together in the league.
How often have we seen our front three even to kind of micro on that as well, really and truly? I think you're bang on the money in that regards. Like, obviously, Arteta has to find solutions. I don't really think it's just one single reason as to why we can't really consistently break down low blocks. I think it's a bit of a mixture of things. I think our game management has improved, but, you know, yesterday was not the first time, that's an exaggeration, but I did like our game management. Now, it sounds mad to say, you know, we scored 6 goals, it was great, but it was a low-key affair. Before the first goal went in, it was a bit of a stalemate. But I just feel at times when we smell blood, we have to go for it. At times, you know, we need to know that, you know, there's every reason to be complacent in that second half. Just manage the game sort of thing. I think that's something we need to learn. Obviously, we need to find solutions to Saka and whatnot being doubled up against. And I don't, you know, it's not our job to find the solutions. We're just fans. And Arteta knows this, and he'll obviously try his best to go against it, because we're not the first team, nor we're going to be the last, with sets of players that are dangerous, that are going to be doubled up against. Now, why I don't think we'll win the league is because, unfortunately, you've got this City team where we all know they're going to hit back. Obviously, you know, if they, you know, we need to be there to exploit. We've shown we can beat them. I just think we need greater consistency in the Premier League. And it sounds mad because we're top of both competitions, and I don't want to waffle about the occasional games, but this is what it could come down to. It could come down to the 2 points you dropped against Spurs, against Chelsea. We know we got to go to the Etihad, Anfield, and all of those things. So I just think it's not that we're not necessarily ready, but it's that. And I just feel in August, obviously, when the season plays out, the points can change. But if you want to realistically beat a City team for the Premier League, which we could have done last season if they weren't a thing, I think you need to be looking at 90 points. Now, I ask myself the question, as much as I love our players, do I feel we are a 90 points team? I think we've got the capacity, but if you was to put a gun to my head and I thought, are we going to get that? I'd be lying to you, bro, if I said yes. So probably going to fall short, but it's exciting times. And what I like is that we're consistent. You know, we need to keep going, but we're consistently improving. As you know, if you stand still in life, you're either going to go backwards or you're going to stagnate. And ironically, you know, probably staying still probably is a form of stagnation. So we just need to keep going, really and truly. What do you make for the Wolves game? Because it's the third and final game of a busy week. It is going to be a different test. You know, they are missing a couple of key players, but it's going to be a completely different game. They're probably the one team that could tell Arsenal fans, shut up about VAR, because they've been done very dirty by those decisions. So I'm expecting something to go their way in the game at the Emirates, man, if I'm honest. What do you make of that?
Comes around. I like Wolves. I think secretly, privately, and maybe sort of without much fanfare, they've done a lot of good work over the last couple of seasons in terms of.
They got Gary O'Neill, good manager, man.
Bringing Gary O'Neill, flipping Collins and Nunes, bringing in Cunha, bringing in that Bellegarde guy, looks good. I think they're a decent team.
Gomez as well, he looks decent.
Gomez is good. Yeah, I think they've done some really good work over the last couple of seasons, and they don't really get. I think they came in 2018, 19 under
something
Nuno,
like that, yeah,
and they've stayed since. So you know, I think Wolves are kind of slightly. They feel like a sort of also ran team, but actually, I think they're not to be messed with. I mean, there's no easy games in the Premier League, as the cliche goes, but it's true. I think against Wolves, I'm hoping that, especially at home, we have most of the ball. I think they're going to be more of a threat on the transition than we might
100%
think. They have a lot of ball carriers in their midfield. They don't have. I think is it Lamina? Is it Gomez and Lamina, or is it someone else?
Yeah, it might not be Lamina. I know Gomez. There's definitely two players up there. For whoever their first choice midfield is, because I saw some of their fans talking about. Apparently, they're out.
It is Lamina because I didn't know the other one. So together we've got
see, better partnership than Saka and Martinelli, mate.
Like, on Rainbow Camp. There we go.
Exactly. Sugar and coffee.
But yeah. So I think we'll control the game. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think again there'll be a hard team to break down. I think there'll be. on the transition. That, as I say, they love carrying. So we just got to be alert. We've got to do our job. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. I don't think they're going to pose any particular threat massively, other than on the transition. We've just got to go and get it done. And I think looking at the form of our team at the minute, considering where we're at, I'm fairly confident. The only worry I have, and maybe we haven't discussed this, is the depth of the bench, because we're starting to look a little bit,
man.
without Smith Rowe, without Vieira.
Now Vieira with the groin stuff now.
Partey, etc. It's
bare bones
starting to look a little bit techie.
I think you're bang on the money, man. And it goes back to August in that initially, in my opinion anyways, I did think we added depth. But then I started to feel towards the back end, have we really, brought depth into this team? And then unfortunately, injuries have probably exaggerated that point. It does feel a bit of a sideward step, and that we're playing a kind of dangerous game. And that's the only thing you can kind of mock about our season. I would say a positive is that I wouldn't say we're necessarily at our maximum. We could say we're defending to our maximum. We're attacking to our maximum. We're playing this great football. But considering where we are in the league, then in theory, the only way is up. And it shows how much the standards of Mikel Arteta that he's changed. Obviously, with the month of November being closed out, our next game's in December. Like, how do you look back at the month? Who would you say is your player of the month and potentially underperformer of the month?
Good question.
Good question, man. Come on, journalist in the making, mate.
Who is my player of the month?
Now, let's start with underperformer of the month, man. That one's easy. Let's do that.
Underperformer. I haven't been. Okay, I'm on the Arsenal website and I'm just reading out the teams. So let me just go through. I haven't been that impressed with Nelson's performances this month.
That's a cop out, man. He's barely playing.
No. That's one of them. I haven't been that impressed.
You're right, though, for what it's worth.
I haven't been that impressed with Ødegaard.
Fair.
I haven't been that impressed with Cedric Suarez. Nketiah, I know he had. I think. I think I'm hoping the Sheffield game was before this month. But other than the Sheffield game, I don't know. I think it would be fair to pick someone as an underperformer. Maybe Ødegaard, but only because I have to pick someone. I don't think he's been that bad. I think he's just been maybe slightly below his level.
I would say underperformers. He's kind of flipped it with two great games towards the back end of this month, but without a doubt, Kai Havertz to a slight degree. I agree with you with Ødegaard. I think he's had, the concussion and stuff, but he ain't been doing it. Yeah. And I would say Eddie, because Eddie's decision making, it needs to get better. I'm not trying to, scapegoat the player. We all know we need better. And we beat Brentford. And I understand it. As a striker, I wouldn't say we're being flooded with chances at Arsenal. When you come off the bench, you want to score. And I do like selfish strikers. Like, I don't disagree with Eddie and Nketiah taking chances. It just feels like every month that goes on, every couple of games, there's a moment in the game where I'm looking for your end product to improve. The hardest thing to do in football is score goals, but the even hardest thing is to make the right decisions. And in that Brentford game, I can't remember how it went, but I'm sure everyone remembers, like, he went for the shot when the pass was open. Now, I don't mind you going for the shot, but if you go for the shot, it has to go in the back of the net. And ultimately, it didn't. Player of the month, Declan Rice, man. Saka still performing and making the difference. But I'd say Declan Rice, Saka. You know what? I might even throw Trossard into the mix as well, really, if I'm honest. I don't think he was that good against Brentford. I feel we were all a bit blunt in an attacking sense. But yeah, man, that would be mine.
I think I'd agree with those shouts. The only person I'd put in that category possibly is Tomiyasu. I think Tomiyasu's been
Tomiyasu, I'm sorry, my fullback friend, I snaked you. Tomiyasu, he's in there as well. Good save, man.
And speaking of saves, David Raya. I'm not saying I wouldn't put him as my number one, but I would say I think he's calmed down a lot this month. I think from his initial kind of shakiness, and I think he's looked really, really good.
I think you're bang on the money. I mean, I was a bit not angry with Gabriel, but there was a moment Gabriel was and I'm sure it must be on social media, but Raya got the ball and he went to kind of high five Gabriel and he's completely aired him. Gabriel's just in game mode. Yeah, I was thinking, damn, man, like that's one of the as a man, that's one of the most gut wrenching feelings ever in life.
Hanging.
No. Yeah, like just left hanging, and you just gotta go. I got myself anyway. So I'm here for that. Again, one question somebody asked me to ask you, and it's here. Like, this is probably a question that's going to get all the blood pumping with a lot of football fans, and it's one where Arsenal fans, there's no in between. Does Arteta have to win a major trophy this season? Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's nice to be able to art someone else that, mate.
Define major trophy. As in the
Oh, mate, you
the Premier League
Arteta needs you for the PR.
No, as in yeah, Mark Gonella, whatever his name is. As in Prem or Champions League.
Let's air. You know, I would say FA Cup as well, but let's air that and let's say champs or Prem just to keep it easy.
I don't think we can say. Well, I mean, I don't think the question itself is.
It's not an easy question.
Fair.
It's not as simple
well,
as
I
that
don't think.
sounds.
I don't think it's a fair measure of success. Look. Here's the thing with Arteta. The reason we are having those types of conversations is because we've only focused on the process. But yeah, what I think is we have to focus on the trajectory, because the trajectory will get us there. If we just focus on, if he doesn't win something this season, let's get him out. We're in all
and I'd have to start it all again. I'm not saying that's a reason to keep him, but everything starts again. Say he turns around and says, I don't want, the next manager says, I don't want Declan Rice, then you have to give him that luxury. So
we're in all sorts of trouble. It's not to say there's a kind of endless, but I will never say with my manager, I don't basically, I think in any good leadership, you have to set out key performance indicators and say, right, what are we asking for?
KPIs, people.
And they can't be outcome based when you can't control the outcome. They have to be things you can control, right? So KPIs, grow the squad value. Okay, we can control that by playing good football, and results go up and down, but we can control
and developing players on the training field, ultimately on the match as well. You're right.
KPIs, try and aim for more points or whatever. There's certain things. Obviously, those things are relative, but something like winning the Premier League is a goal. But I think you have to focus on it, right? Get this player from here to here, win the next training session or whatever it is. You have to focus day by day by day by day, and then those long-term things, atomic habits or whatever you want to call it, like those things will build over time. I think this is the thing is you immediately get accused of, you're saying you're being unambitious or whatever. It's not that at all. I want us to win the Premier League. Your standards on the floor, your puppet merchant, or whatever he says. But the
twerking to be involved in the club, as someone says.
That's it. But I think saying we're going to win, what if Saliba, Saka, and Rice all get an injury, and we don't win the Champions League? Oh, we sack him then? It's like we have to just go day by day and go, look, next game, did we deserve to win? Actually, yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Mikel Arteta did an interview with Jamie Carragher in about this time last year, when he said, my job as a manager is to ensure we deserve to win the game, which is an interesting way of phrasing it, because he's not saying my job as a manager is to win the game. My job is to put the players out in a formation and give them all the tools to go and win the game.
He's not to use war as an example, but he's an army general, isn't it? Like, it's like we're about to go to battle. He has to set up his troops and position them in the right way.
From there could be an earthquake and your entire army gets caught in it and they die. Okay, so what, you failed, did you?
Yeah,
it's like,
how you thought the enemy never had snipers and your key man gets sniped in his head and it's over. Like, where are we at with it? Like,
what can you do? All you can do is set up your team to try and win. I believe at the minute, if you look at all of the underlying data, if you look at all of the transfer buys, if you look at all of the way he acts in the media, all the things that Mikel can control, he is getting towards or at the top level. So then at some point, being at the top level, when we look back in 5-10 years, we'll look back and go, from being at that level every single day, from hitting those standards, we won 5 Premier Leagues, 3 Champions League, whatever it ends up being, and I hope we do. But to say we have to win a Premier League this season or he's gone, I'm not saying that's what your comment is saying, but we have to win a Premier League or let's get him out. I shy away from that personally.
I'm not too dissimilar with you, man. I agree with that. I think Mikel Arteta, no man is without faults. I'm definitely not a Mikel Arteta apologist. I think there's more reasons to keep him in the job than out. In many ways, if there was a young Arsene Wenger or whatever, or the next Pep Guardiola, or Pep walked away from City tomorrow and said, I want to manage Arsenal, I love Arteta, but naturally, I'm going to want that in it. So I'm not going to defend you blindlessly, but I think there's more reasons to keep him than not. He's definitely done some frustrating things. He definitely has his faults. I definitely feel with the money and the authority that you're getting at the club, like you're our first post Arsene Wenger manager. You're not a head coach, really. I think that, with great power comes great responsibility, like it says in Spider-Man. So I think there's that, and I think you just got to maximize the squad, as you said. Like last season was the opportunity of a lifetime. We don't know if the landscape of the Premier is going to be the same. We should have probably won the Premier League, and I think internally with the players and Arteta, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Football's a results-driven business, but I don't think it's as easy as saying if he doesn't win a major or not, it's not going to happen. We're performing in both, but Champions League's a different beast. Premier League, you're playing Manchester City. Injuries indirectly are the manager's fault. He's not injuring his players, but you assemble the squad, so you have to take accountability. And I agree with you about the process. That it's a gradual thing. I do think, though, as an Arsenal Football Club, we're in love with being in the process. Like we love baking, but we never like eating the cake, essentially. So I do want to see that get better, but I don't think you could say that. I think for me, not that my standards on the floor. Of course, I want to win the Prem. I want to win the champs. The one thing I'll be harsh on Arteta is the FA Cup. That needs to come home, because since we've won that under you, I think we've embarrassed ourselves in that competition. I know people will say League Cup's not important, but for me, trophies are trophies. And I think with City going out, there was a real chance to get something. And, anytime you've got a team that's young and hungry for silverware, you need to get that in. But I don't think he necessarily should be sacked. I think context is key. Obviously, if he finishes 8th, somehow he crashes out of Europe and embarrasses us, then you've got to face the music. But, not to set my standards on the floor. As I said, I want to win stuff. For me, you need a top 3 minimum finish, probably 2 in the Premier League, give a good account of ourselves in the Champions League, go as far as we can, and ultimately just keep showing these improvements really and truly. And I would also say I want Arteta to be a bit more ruthless, because I do think he's ruthless, but I think he's got that Arsene Wenger thing about him. And not to drop any players in it, I think we've got some good players in this squad, but arguably now, when we're now trying to fight City, we just need better players that play to a higher level. There's a bit more consistency. There's a lot of players that are good, but they're kind of purple patch players. 3-4 games, they're probably the best in the squad. Then they're kind of indifferent. I think we need less of that ultimately. And I think, not that I believe that with Tierney, but Tierney, the phase left you. Ramsdale looks like you're being phased out. I don't want to say it, but a certain Haylender, who's our number 10, it's not looking good at the moment, bruv, is it? But yeah, I think you're bang on the money, really and truly. Where are you at with the transfer news, man? Like, where are you at with potentially selling Partey in January, first of all?
I wouldn't do it unless we're getting in a replacement. I think that's true of everything in January, really. I think it's an opportunity market. Yeah, I'm hoping Partey's back by January, but we can't rely on him long term. So
then he's going off to play for his country for a month, man. So that's
we're gonna have to facilitate a sale at some point. I just think if we're gonna need him in the run-in, if he's fit and available, if we can get a sale for £40 million for some unknown reason from a Saudi club, and we can get someone in who we feel can replace that level, then yeah, great. But I can't see that happening in January.
Where are you at with Osimhen? There's been the latest over the last 24 hours. I know you're a guy for him, but 130 million. Where you at? And I don't know if you've actually seen it. You're the perfect guy to ask. Like, I was doing a stream yesterday, and someone said he's had 14 injuries. Does that concern you at 24 years of age of Osimhen as well? Then, yeah, I did. I had that same reaction. I went on Google. I went on Transfermarkt. I looked through his injuries. The only luxury I will kind of give him with the injuries is he had that face injury. That's not really it is an injury, but it's not really an injury.
Yeah,
but
it's not.
Yeah, he's had 14 knocks, bro. At 24 years of age, 100 odd million. Not to downplay his quality, but judging by your facial reaction, it's a bit bewildering, kind of thing.
I'm looking through. I mean, the only thing that seems to be repeating is a hamstring problem. Which happens a lot with quite explosive players. I don't know. But if I read them out: hamstring, muscle, abductor, coronavirus, cheekbone, calf,
COVID will leave him alone.
Coronavirus, shoulder, meniscus. It's a. I think the one thing you want to watch out for is like Partey, which is just like hamstring.
It's crazy, isn't it, with Partey? And to be fair with you, I only focus on, I know obviously, you've got all of these injuries going back to his days in Germany. Interestingly, he wasn't injured in France, though, when he was at Lille. I kind of focus on this kind of period, the last 2 seasons, if I'm honest. And he's missed 7 games for club and country there, then becomes 11, obviously, with the Napoli game with the adductor. And hamstrings, like you said, it happens really and truly. So if he, I always like to take the positive approach really and truly and say, he'll get over that. But Partey never had injuries at Atletico. Same for us. Can't stay fit.
Yeah, and also I think Osimhen is basically when he's fit, he starts. And I think we'd have a bit more cover for him if he signed. But mate, I'd spend whatever. I think he's that good. I think at some point it's again what we're talking about with Pep. Like at some point you have to say, if we're trying to compete with City and Barca and Madrid and United and all these clubs, we have to start spending the same amount of money as them. We can't expect to be competing with them with, you know, I'm not saying we are at budget because we've started signing players like Declan Rice, but you know, we can't be competing with we have to accept at some point we have to start spending that kind of money.
Yeah, you can't beat and join them. We'll never be like City or Chelsea and that, but when it's there to be done rightly, I think you're bang on the money, especially game changers, evidently, like Declan Rice and Osimhen would be of the same ilk.
It's like the Mbappe thing. Like, I don't think we should.
We're going to get onto that.
I don't think Arteta would like Mbappe, to be honest. I don't. Yeah,
in fact, let's give me all your thoughts on that as well, because that sets it up perfectly. Even though you're not sticking to the script, my friend, you was alluding to you don't think Mikel Arteta would like Mbappe, and how do you feel on that? Do you think it's feasible? Do you think there's realistically any chance?
I would like to think that we're in conversations, and if there are, right, we have to hit a few key markers. Is he going to be ridiculous in terms of his wage demands? Because he's 100%. On free, so he's on free.
Shatter our structure.
So maybe we could go a little bit further. But I think if he's anywhere, who's our best paid player at the minute? Like,
it's got to be. It could be Benjamin White, Kai Havertz, Williams, Saliba, Saka, Martinelli. It's probably them kind of guys there, newly signed new deals.
Yeah, so I'm on Capology at the minute. So for Arsenal at the moment, it's Kai Havertz on 200.
Send me the link.
Oh, to open up one of your tabs.
I genuinely thought you was gonna leave that alone today. You know, I genuinely thought you was gonna leave it alone. I was like, yes, he hasn't said anything.
I'm not saying. Look at it.
But you're like Arteta. You're always watching, man. But we're nice guys. We're making sure everyone can see.
So Kai Havertz is on 280 grand. Again, this is all kind of reported and whatever, but Capology are usually pretty good. If say Mbappe came in and was on 400 grand a week, I think I can understand it. If he's coming in on 800, 900, it's just not feasible. Ridiculous. And I don't think he would take 400 grand a week, let's be honest. I think that's kind of that done. If he comes in and has conversations with Arteta and Arteta says, look, if you don't fit into my system and the way I want to play, you won't play. I don't think he'd take that.
Yeah, look at his antics at PSG.
I think he's had a lot very early on in life, and deservedly so, because he's a very, very talented player. But equally, that does create a certain type of individual. Does that cause a problem in the dressing room? I think there's just so many factors that are red flags for Mikel Arteta that I think we should ask the question, but I think it should be just checking that this isn't going to happen for us, right? Kind of question.
Yeah. And hopefully, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, you know what, Kylian, I'll sign. I agree with you. I think, the first thing you need to just talk about a player's quality. If it was just on quality, whether he's going to play on the left-hand side or play up front, which I would like, we do love him. Eddie Nketiah, I know you've got the number 14, but if Mbappe was serious, I'm sorry, you've got to take that off, because this is the closest thing we can have to Thierry Henry. Yeah. He'd be a game changer. I like the fact of that we're exploring the conditions, because it shows that maybe there's stuff that could be done there. We should. Exactly. But where the issue for me is, and again, I'm not a financial man. I don't really care for the financial fallout as long as we win stuff. But the wage structure is going to be splattered. Kylian Mbappe is still relatively young. The first contract he signs at Arsenal, at some point, we're going to want to renew it. So where would we be at with that? And obviously, not everyone is going to get Kylian Mbappe. No worries. Not everyone is going to get Kylian Mbappe wages per se, bro. But naturally, if Declan Rice is trying to renegotiate a new deal and him and Mbappe are first names on the team sheet, Declan Rice is going to sit there and go, hold on, I know I'm not going to get Mbappe wages, but I want this. And, our wage bill is going to go out the window, really and truly. And to a degree, I don't like the comment of stepping stone, but his heart is set on Real Madrid and all of those sort of things in it. So there would kind of be that. And the antics, bro.
I'll be a stepping stone for Kylian Mbappe, mate.
No, man, because I don't want
if Margot Robbie's like, if Margot Robbie's like, you're going to be a stepping stone for 3 years for my next one, I'll be like, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Do you know what? You have to, because City kind of done that with Haaland. To be fair, you're right still. So I'm not really with that. And it's just, for me, it's the antics. Like, God, I know I shouldn't, but I think we're a bigger club than PSG, with the greatest of respect to them. I think those antics wouldn't quite wash at Arsenal, but, he kind of acts bigger than the club. If you do that at Real Madrid, if he goes there, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. So it's probably a myth. So I think that rules him out, man.
That's a very good point. And I think culturally, you can do that at PSG, but if you if the Madrid fans have a sniff that you think you're bigger than the club, you're going to be
They
hated.
literally chased Bale's car, mate.
Same,
I didn't even do nothing.
Same with Arsenal to some degree. I think if a player thought they were bigger than the club, then it's just that we aren't on Madrid's level, so players can take the piss a little bit more.
And to be fair, financially, again, I'm not a finance man. Big up Mo Hader. You sell a lot of shirts with Kylian Mbappe, man. So maybe we'd get our money back in that regard.
We'd make it back in the shirt sales.
Exactly. Yeah. To be honest with you, Saka's probably our best seller, and he'd probably still be up there. But Kylian Mbappe, Mbappe, obviously Saka's probably as well. But Mbappe is probably one of those players like Messi and Ronaldo and Neymar in the sense of, yeah, football fans and clubs are the teams that you're playing for support you, but there's probably people who just support you. Like there's nothing else really. Like we're just Mbappe fans or Messi fans or whatever, and we'll follow you to the ends of the earth. So there'd be a lot to make, and the French ties, bro, it'd be lovely, man. It'd be lovely.
Do you know what? What's annoying is it makes so much sense in so many ways, but it also just
like because it makes so much sense.
Because
it can't happen.
Because but because in football, because football's gone where it's gone. I think 10 years ago this move happened, but football's gone where it's gone.
Where are you at with Vlahovic? Apparently, just skimming through this, it'll cost 100 million euros. If we couldn't get Osimhen, I guess would you have him? Or is he up there with Osimhen? Is it either or? Would you be happy with either?
I wouldn't. For me, this is Osimhen's a kind of whatever price. Vlahovic, I think I would take at a price. I think his athleticism concerns me. Whenever I've watched
I say that as well.
Do you remember late Lacazette when he just ran with a parachute on his back?
Yeah.
Vlahovic,
ran like a pregnant lady. Respectfully, like Lacazette weren't the quickest, man. Big up Lacazette,
ladies, by the way. But yeah. And I think if you watch Vlahovic, there's a clip of him picking it up in the midfield and then turning and spinning and running to the box. He takes about 50 strides. It's crazy. The amount of you just watch Haaland, he just eats up ground. It's like 4 strides for him to get from the center circle to the penalty box. Vlahovic, man, he's like Fred Flintstone. He's just like, he just hasn't got the running power, and it's not the end of the world. But I just also think he's a little bit stiff. I think if you watch the way Jesus can wriggle out of things with the space that's allowed in the Premier League, I do worry about that. And I don't think Vlahovic is strong enough to, if you're coming up against William Saliba in training, I don't think he's strong enough to deal with that. But then it's conversely against, Virgil van Dijk or whoever it is, Harry Maguire. I don't think he's got the strength to move them in the way that we might need a centre back to move move centre back. So yeah, I like him. I think at the right price, but
it's just Osimhen's got your heart.
Osimhen, I've got pictures of him on my wall. You can't see them, but
yeah. I think you're bang on the money. I'm having Vlahovic now. Many people would point towards Mikhail Mudryk, and it's very different. And as you said earlier, there's a lot of variables as to why it probably isn't working at Chelsea. But we was ready to spend close to what we see here in 100 million on Mudryk. So if Arteta has scouted Vlahovic, I'm on it.
The Mudryk thing, what's that? Because people keep saying, well, the Mudryk. Whenever Vlahovic comes out, they go, well, Mudryk. What does that mean?
I think for me, I'm saying why I would take Vlahovic, because obviously the Mudryk didn't work out. And I'm just saying, just because Arteta has scouted him doesn't mean it worked out. But just on the basis of Arteta clearly knows about this striker, we aggressively tried to get him. You must have a plan for Vlahovic to a degree. Now, times can change, in the same way that me and you, yesterday we might rate certain players and tomorrow we say, oh, you know what, they're overrated. Arteta could change his mind. But just because of the intensity we went after this guy, I'm all for Vlahovic if it is that. And I'm sure at some point there was like tweets resurfacing on Arsenal Twitter where we was looking at him from his partisan days, which was well before Arteta. So, and I don't know for this, because obviously we need a striker. His contract is running down. Juventus want to give him a new contract. We've historically been linked with him. I don't know if the media are just getting 2 and 2 and making 100. But I would go for Vlahovic generally if we could, really. I'd say for me, Osimhen would be the first choice target. I would go for the Vlahovic second. I wouldn't mind the Sesko of Leipzig, even though I don't know if he's ready to make the immediate impact. Like, I know you're not a fan of Ivan Toney, for example, per se, but if we was like in January, for example, if we was going to sign Ivan Toney or Sesko, I think Ivan Toney is more ready to hit the ground running, kind of help us immediately to win a Prem. But I would want Sesko or Ferguson from Brighton, for example, because of the higher ceiling. And obviously, Vlahovic is 23, 24. So there's a lot of upside. I do have concerns about his general play, about the way he runs. But then again, I have seen little bits and pieces of him playing for Juventus that kind of dispels that kind of logic, man. My last one in relation to transfers, where are you at with Douglas Luiz then?
I think it
And
was
actually Ruben Neves.
Yeah, well, I can put them both together. I think it's what we were saying earlier. I think if you're gonna sign someone, they have to raise a ceiling really properly for you, because you can go and sign a Jakub Kiwior who comes in at £22 million and clearly isn't going to start for you every week. Is someone for the future? Is someone who you're going to build up and develop and who looks really good and can offer you a different kind of defender,
Squad player essentially, a filler.
Yeah, he's a squad player. I think if you're signing Douglas Luiz or Ruben Neves, you're not signing them to come in and play back up. They're coming in to try and take a slot. Now, at the moment, that's one of Ødegaard. You're not dropping Rice, so he's in your midfield. It's one of Ødegaard or Havertz, and I don't think either of them in Mikel's mind are kind of up for debate. So in the end, you're kind of buying someone for rotation. I think you only go and do something in the midfield if it's a prospect who can come through. At which point I would question, Wanyeri. I'd look at Vieira. I'd look at Smith Rowe. I'd look at Mars Lewis Skelly. I'd look at all those players who are already in the club and say Charlie Patino, and I'd say, is there not something we can do rather than going and spending another 20 million on another sort of Chelsea-esque prospect, or we go and buy Jude Bellingham. I'm not saying Jude Bellingham, but you go and do that thing that goes right. So we could get Jude Bellingham, but you go and get Frankie De Jong, who you go right. Well, that guy comes in and he is objectively going to raise the ceiling of this team. I just think Ruben Neves and Douglas Luiz are kind of caught in that middle ground where they're not. They're good players. I don't think they get in the first 11.
Squad players, they're not quite, raising our curtain like you said, but they would offer something. For me, it's just the prices. Like, Ruben Neves, I don't really doubt it, but in theory, if you could get that on a little loan in January, tie us over, I'm with it really and truly. My last question for you, bro. Score predictions for Wolves then. I'm going with 2-1. I think it'd be a bit of a nervy one, if I'm honest.
Hey, last time I was on, I got it right.
Yeah, bang on the money, man. Lottery numbers next, fella. But then again, I did say Kai Havertz was scoring against Brentford. Crazy. Oh man.
I'm gonna go 2-0 to
goal
who?
Scorers.
To Arsenal. Oh no, we're at home. We're at home. 2-1.
I love the way you just done that. We're at home. 2-1. Like we're bracing for some defensive mishap.
Saka and Gabriel.
Which Gabriel, man? There's like 20 of them in this Arsenal team.
Exactly. Gabriel Magalhaes.
Hey, do you know what? Fair enough. He's deserved it, man. He's probably the biggest passion merchant at Arsenal at this moment in time, based on yesterday. It was lovely. Even William Saliba. I don't know if William Saliba's got bad blood with the Lens fans, but every goal that was going in, he was really giving it to them. I don't know how it works over there, but yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, so yeah, man. Obviously, we know, you've got content to come out. Let people know where they can find you and content to come out. Don't imagine they don't know who the different knock is, but if someone is just seeing you for the first time, mate,
check it out. I'm presuming you put a link in the title. So yeah, go check out Different Knock. Check out the Cannon Pod as well, which is where I'm podcasting with George and Babs.
The Bermuda Triangle of content creators over there. Make sure you're following that. That's the latest one from social media, mate.
But yeah, no, all good. And subscribe to DG, obviously.
Come on, appreciate that. But yeah, man, Alex, let me let you get out of here, man. It's been a fantastic hour and a bit. Hopefully the next time we do this, the positive juices are still flowing, man. And on that note, as the man said there, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know your thoughts and everything, whether you agree, disagree, your opinions. Everyone stay blessed, stay safe. One love. We're out, man. Safe.
Peace.
I think it's like